Today, the schools of the Yakima School District rest on the ancestral lands of the 14 confederated tribes and bands of the Yakima Nation.
Hoy las escuelas del Distrito Escolar de Yakima descansan en las tierras ancestrales de las 14 tribus y bandas confederadas de la nación Yakima.
The people of the Yakima Nation inhabited more than 12 million acres.
La gente de la nación Yakima habitó más de 10 billones de acres.
Across Adams, Benton, Chelan, Douglas, Franklin, Grant, Kittitas, Klickitat, and Yakima counties.
En los condados de Adams, Benton, Chelan, Douglas, Grant, Franklin, Kittitas, Klickitat, y Yakima.
Today we honor those native peoples who are tied to the land through history, legends, and culture.
Hoy honramos a estos pueblos originales que están vinculados en la tierra a través de historias, leyendas y culturas.
We acknowledge the descendants who live in the world today.
Reconocemos a sus descendientes que viven en el mundo de hoy.
We thank the caretakers of this land who have lived here and continue to live here since time immemorial.
Agradezcamos a los guardianes de la tierra, quienes han vivido aquí y continúan viviendo aquí, desde tiempos inmemoriales.
An acknowledgement is a simple, powerful way to show respect.
Un reconocimiento es una manera simple y poderosa de mostrar respeto.
And a step toward correcting the stories and practices that erase Indigenous peoples' history and culture.
Y un paso hacia la corrección de las historias y prácticas que borran la historia y la cultura de los pueblos indígenas.
It also honors the truth.
También honra la verdad. As a school district, we will continue to build upon our relations with the Yakima Nation.
Como distrito escolar, continuaremos fortaleciendo nuestras relaciones con la nación Yakima.
And whereas retired educators are encouraged to remain active in the education profession through volunteer activities associated with learning, now therefore, I, Jay Inslee, Governor of the State of Washington, do hereby proclaim March 17 to 23, 2025 as School Retiree Appreciation Week in Washington, and I urge all people in our state to join me in the special observance. Signed this 30th day of January, 2025, Governor Jay Inslee.
Thank you, Director Rice. The second proclamation this afternoon is for Education Support Professionals Month. And it reads as, whereas education support professionals play a vital role in nearly every aspect of education, including maintaining buildings and grounds, preparing and serving nutritious meals, ensuring school facilities are clean and orderly, assisting in classrooms, providing over 60% of all instructional hours to students with special needs, English language learners, and those addressing opportunity gaps, performing and supporting research activities, delivering information technology and media services, carrying out administrative support functions, providing safe and reliable transportation, and fostering a secure and healthy environment through many other specialized services. And whereas more than 62,000 education support professionals work tirelessly to support students across Washington's universities, colleges, and public schools, serving as the backbone of our public education system, and deserving of recognition and gratitude for their exceptional contributions to the success of our schools and communities. And whereas education support professionals are indispensable in fulfilling the state's responsibility to educate all students, and by enriching the learning environment, they serve as essential partners with teachers, parents, administrators, and school boards in achieving educational excellence. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Directors of Yakima Public Schools does hereby proclaim March 2025 as Education Support Professionals Month in honor of the outstanding dedication, contributions, and impact of these professionals in fostering a high-quality education for all students. Signed on the 3rd day of March of 2025. Let's break some awkward silence with a round of applause for our school retirees and for our education support professionals. Thank you very much. Thank you. At this point in time, we begin our reports to the board. And first on the list tonight is President Guerrero from the Yakima Education Association. Welcome.
Is this on? Testing? Okay. So I'm going to be speaking to you tonight and probably for the next few weeks about staffing because it's that time of the year. And today I'd like to hit specifically on admin staffing. And I know I've touched on this before with the but the inadequate admin staffing and how that hurts my members, particularly at the elementary level. A couple more examples have come to my attention in the past couple months that, again, I want to make sure you are aware of when you are looking at staffing. So at the elementary buildings, several of them were left with just one administrator, and that causes huge problems on several different levels. In one instance, and I'm just going to use random names for the sake of the conversation, Casey Mitchell, he's a horrible administrator. I don't like him, right? And as soon as I hear his name, I'm automatically biased against him. Well, this member came to me and she didn't even know how to reach out to the union. She's been a teacher for 20-something years and she had no idea what the process was. And I tried to explain to her, you go through your building rep first and they try to fix it with admin and then you come to me. And she's like, yeah, but admin is the problem. I'm like, okay, that's weird because I know that Jamie Lee is your principal and she's fabulous. I can't imagine what problem you could possibly have with Jamie Lee. Oh, it's not Jamie Lee. It's that Jamie Lee is alone. And so to try and lower Jamie's workload with the amount of teachers that she has to evaluate, they farmed me out to Casey. Really? Okay. So I'm automatically on her side because, like I said, I don't like Casey. He causes a lot of problems for me. He's not a good leader. He's a micromanager. It's just awful. But we go to the meeting and I try to be fair and operate in fairness. And I don't think Casey was the problem when it came to this particular evaluation. The problem was that he was an outsider. So here's my member. She's in charge of this new CTE program, and they put Casey as her evaluator because Casey has some experience with that. She's got this new glass blowing class, and he used to do that 20 years ago. And so, oh, this should be perfect. She's really nice and easy to work with. Except that's not how it turned out. She met him maybe once 10 years ago for 5 minutes. So he is a total stranger to her. There was no relationship building, nothing. So the first time they have a real conversation, I don't know, November, she's immediately on the offense. And I get it, because if it were me as a 20-year veteran and Casey came in and tried to tell me how to run my glass blowing program, I'm sorry, who are you? When was the last time you were in a classroom? You don't know me. You're not in the building with me. Who are you to be questioning me and thereby casting doubt on me? Honestly, I think Casey was doing his job. He has to check boxes on the evaluation. He doesn't know these things about her because he doesn't work with her on a daily basis. But that caused problems with the member, and that burned a relationship beyond repair. I mean, sitting there and listening, I'm not going to fault Casey for that because, like I said, it doesn't really sound like she did anything wrong. I offered to sit in. I said, I'll be there for your next evaluation. I will make sure that it is handled well. I don't want Jamie Lee to have to take on this extra work. She's alone. No, not having it, not hearing it. And so now there's a burned relationship, and there's a teacher who is probably talking more smack about Casey that's not necessarily warranted. Like, if I'm going to talk smack about you, it's warranted. But I don't think in that case that it was. Then another case came to light where this time it was Maria Lucero. She's the administrator, and I'll be honest, she's kind of a frequent flyer. She's been on YEA's radar. I was expecting to hear her name this year, but I haven't. I think Maria has improved as an administrator because I have not heard anything from her members until recently. Turns out that Maria has a relative in the building, and that relative is my student. I kind of feel like it's a conflict of interest for Maria to be my evaluator when that relative is in my class. Okay, so how do we solve these issues? I guess moving forward, we could create a group of evaluators where when there's a conflict of interest or a burned relationship, we can go to them, but that doesn't solve the fundamental problem of Casey was an outsider, and that was the problem to begin with. When you're doing evaluations, a lot of times, again, let's say this is me and I'm the one that's being evaluated. My evaluator doesn't have to ask me to provide evidence about how I work with students outside of my class, how I work with my building environment, how I work with parents, how I'm a teacher leader, because she sees that. She sees it every day in the work that I do. I don't have to do the extra work of providing evidence for that. But when you're an outsider, you don't see that. And I think it's perfectly within your managerial right to ask to see that, but you're putting an undue burden on my member that wouldn't be there if she had been with her original evaluator, who already knows all of that. So creating this outside kind of cadre of evaluators that can step in to help with workload like that, that doesn't really solve the issue. You build relationships with evaluators, and that's how you get to coach them up. If I'm not doing something well, it's not going to get coached. I'm not going to feel like I'm getting coached up when you assign a stranger to coach me. So even when you're cutting administrators and shuffling other ones around, you're causing problems that way. So an administrator that I worked with that I know personally is a good administrator gets moved to another building. Jewel, I'm going to pick on Jewel this time. Jewel gets moved to another building. I know Jewel is a good administrator because I have personally worked with her. But now she's in a new building where she has to build new relationships. Those people don't trust her. They don't know her. And maybe her persona comes across as a little more strict than what they're used to. Now you have bad blood there, unwarranted bad blood, because in her previous building, she was well loved. But then you moved her, you shifted her, and granted, I know that happens even when there aren't budget issues, but forced moves like that do not help morale. Bringing in outsiders like that doesn't help morale. And it's so important right now for many reasons that we're not doing anything additional to hurt teacher morale. Every student-facing position that you cut affects my members. Every custodian, every para, every cook, every pro-tech, every administrator. We need them to help us do our jobs. When you have an administrator, and again, this seems to affect mostly elementary, but it's a new administrator as the head person. And then you put them in a building by themselves. And it's a building that has 80 plus tier 3 level students, highly impacted, high behavior level students. And you want them to handle that by themselves? And your answer perhaps is, oh, we'll coach them up. I'm going to tell you right now, that is not actually that helpful, because what that does is to stress out the administrator, and then that bleeds out into my members. My members feel the effect of that stress. That principal being stressed out, it bleeds out. Better staffing is an answer. Again, if you have a building with 80 plus high impact, high behavior students, and you have one administrator, one behavior specialist, one counselor, that's not enough. That's not enough to handle all of those students. Student-facing positions, we just need to have more of them. And I beg you to keep this in mind, that we are trying to move forward to full inclusion. And a couple of us just did a site visit. And I'm going to tell you, I hear full inclusion and I think that's a fantasy, that's a pipe dream, whatever, it's not real. But it is. I saw it, I touched it, I heard it, I smelled it, I tasted it. It's possible. But it's not when you have a staff with low morale. Those buildings that we've been to site visits, those teachers had 100% buy-in. They were 100% volunteering. They were supernatural committed, and they were putting insane amounts of work in. But they were willing to do that because A, they liked their administrators, B, they had a lot of support, C, there was good morale. And cut staffing, we interfere with all of those things. And you don't get good morale overnight. You build up to that. They acknowledged this is a 10, 12-year project. So we need to start now, not later, now. Questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Guerrero. At this point, I get to introduce Principal Ariza, principal from Wilson Middle School. Come on in.
Ready to go. Ready to go, Mark? Yep. Okay. Well, good afternoon. Warm welcome to our esteemed Board of Directors, Superintendent Green, Cabinet members, YSD staff, and visitors. Welcome to Wilson. I first want to take the opportunity to thank you for this opportunity to just tell you a little piece of our Wilson story, which I have titled Every Student, Every Success, Data-Driven Growth and Whole Child Support. Board members, in the slide deck that was given to you, you will have access to several slides that have information pertaining to the different facets of a middle school student here at Wilson. Many of the slides include formative and summative data of students' academic performance in this current year, as well as trend data for the past 3 years. You'll be able to read our mission and vision statements, which play a crucial role in developing the systems that drive our daily school routines, inside and outside of our classrooms. You'll also find celebration information, such as students' exceptional success in the syllabi literacy test, where more than 44 of our students earned 1 or more high school credits, and 18 of our students earned all 4 credits, officially receiving their syllabi literacy. And that's an incredible achievement, one that will benefit their high school careers, college, or any career pathway that they choose. And so, of course, we're very, very proud of them. I know that you probably had a chance to explore the full presentation. There's a lot of slides in there. And I'm sure that you'll probably have some wondering. So please, don't hesitate to reach out to me with any questions you may have, either after this presentation or any other day. Okay, so now we're going to dive into a few key slides that I've selected to highlight today. So just want to share a little bit about our instructional leadership team's analysis of formative and summative assessments in reading, math, and science have led us to write challenging school improvement goals to improve our student learning and social well-being. So these are, number one, to improve and sustain student attendance at 92% or higher, to close the achievement gap for our English language learners and our students with disabilities, and to create a safe, equitable, and inclusive learning environment for all of our students. So in this presentation, I'm going to focus primarily on goal number 2. So data analysis of our student proficiency on our SBA and other assessments, it continues to show a lingering academic proficiency gap between our English language learners and our students with disabilities as compared to the all categories of students reported by OSPA data. And this just hasn't sat well with our team over the years, and it still doesn't, and it shouldn't, right? So our team has decided to make this goal a priority. So in order to close this gap, we recognize that our ELL students and students with disabilities would need to grow at a greater growth than our all categories. And so this is one of those like easier said than done things, right? It's an ambitious goal, but it's one that we have placed a focus on, and we are starting to see some meaningful progress towards it, as you will see in the following data sets. So this first data slide is from our Washington State Schools Improvement Framework. What this slide shows is that Wilson is above the threshold line used to determine the placement level of school improvement and tier supports for schools in the state. I don't know if you can see that line. It's kind of light there, but it's right there. Okay. So as you can see, we are above the threshold in all of the categories, including our ELL and students with disabilities. So because we exceed this threshold in all categories, Wilson is classified as a school with foundational supports. It's a designation that we're proud of, but we know that we still have a lot of work to do because we would like to see every single, let me see. We'd like to see every single column a dark blue color. So we know we still have a lot of work to do, but just focusing on this goal, it will continue to drive our commitment for continuing growth for all of our students. So as I mentioned before, our school improvement plan it specifically calls out closing the achievement gap. So this slide, this data set is found in the categories link in the OSPI report card website for our school. And analysis of this data reveals that we are making progress towards this end goal. So as you can see in this bar graph, our ELL students demonstrated greater growth than our non-English language learners as measured by student growth percentiles in math. The ELA data also shows the gap narrowing. So in fact, we are showing signs of closing the gap in several of our categories. So this indicates to us that our action steps and our targeted interventions are taking hold. And not only are we growing our ELL students and our students with disabilities, but students in many other categories as well. So this is a key milestone for us in closing this gap. And we are committed to sustaining this progress through continued data-driven instruction, through targeted interventions, and ongoing professional learning, such as this year, we've done an all-staff GLAD training. In fact, we had a session today. And just encouraging our teachers to, use these strategies in the classroom and during their instruction. So this next slide compares our Wilson students' performance on the ELA SBA to state averages. And so as you will notice, Wilson scores, which is right there. Wilson scores closely track the state performance average, with our 8th graders nearly matching overall state performance. So a particularly rewarding trend is to see the growth that students make, that trajectory of growth from 6th grade to 8th grade while here at Wilson. So that's that graph on the right side. It's cohort data tracking student performance over a 3-year period, starting with the school year 2021 through 23-24. So this data reflects consistent growth as students progress through Wilson, validating our instructional plans, our strategies, and our interventions. We feel good about their growth while they're here at Wilson, and we feel good about sending them prepared to their respective high schools. In the slide deck, you're going to be able to find data that will show students' growth in math. Now, math is an area that we recognize requires additional support and resources for student improvement. And that is why we have placed an urgency for growth by dedicating resources to develop students' math fluency and automaticity, as well as providing tiered interventions during the day, including identifying students that can benefit from our Tier 2 math mindset class. So this brings me to this next slide. Here we go. So you may recognize some of these superstar Wilson math mentors. So approximately 2.5 years ago, the math team took on the challenge to address the gap in basic math and automaticity skills caused by the COVID closures. Our math team determined that in order for students to improve and show success in grade level standards, we had to first address the loss of those basic math skills. So the plan, it required an all hands on deck and a school-wide approach. We purchased Reflex, which is a computer-based intervention program that has shown great success for developing these skills for our students. So after 2.5 years of implementation and monitoring, our trend data shows that our current 8th graders have grown from 45% proficient on math basic facts and automaticity from starting at 6th graders to now 81% proficient at the start of the year already. So you might be asking yourself, what is math automaticity? So we describe it as students having kind of mental math skills, right? A sort of math fluency, being able to add, subtract, multiply, and divide without a calculator, maybe even using scratch paper. And so another very important component of this math plan calls for students to set growth goals and to monitor their progress during the year. So with nearly 850 students here at Wilson, you can imagine, you know, we thought we're going to need an army of mentors to pull this off, right? And to sit down with each student to help them reflect and to fill out their progress monitoring sheets. So knowing the importance of this step, the team decided to call on any building or district staff member available to help with this task. And it wasn't a surprise to get such a great response from so many people, okay, across the district willing to help, including a few of you sitting here at these tables and in the room today. So since I have this opportunity today, I would like to publicly thank board members Norm Walker, Graciela Villanueva, who was just here last week, Superintendent Green, the many district directors sitting out there right now, and building staff that have found their time in their busy schedules to meet with dozens of students to celebrate their growth, okay, and to challenge them to continue growing. Research is very clear and it shows that student-driven goal setting has a significant impact on learning outcomes. So both the mentors, what I've kind of noticed now, okay, both the mentors and the students now look forward to these meetings, and I've now developed this like mentor-mentee relationship, and I see these high fives and kind of joking around and encouraging them, and so that's really cool to see. So if you haven't had the opportunity to come and meet with one of these scholars yet, don't worry, we'll have future opportunities for you. So you know, if you can find time, we'd really would love you to participate, and I can guarantee you it'll be a rewarding experience for you. So be on the lookout for an invitation from either myself or from our math interventionist, Mrs. Bachman, who I want to recognize also right now as one of the main drivers of our math plan. So thank you, Mrs. Bachman. So in closing, I just want to thank you again for this opportunity to just share a little piece of our Wilson story and to celebrate our successes, okay? None of this would be possible without the dedication of our students who work very hard every day, from our staff and our parents who go above and beyond, and from our school leadership team who lead with vision, with commitment, and with determination. So again, I just want to thank you for this opportunity to share a little bit. Thank you for being here, and thank you for supporting our Cavs Way.
Thank
So
you,
if you have
Principal Orison.
any questions right now?
Are there any questions from members of the board for Principal Orison?
Thank you for your presentation. It was, it's encouraging.
Yeah.
Very
much.
encouraging to hear about improvement in math.
Yes.
I reviewed the rest of your presentation, and there's some really compelling data in here that I encourage the rest of the board to really take a deep dive in. Math is one of those subjects. Either you get it right away or you don't. And if you don't and don't get the help that you need, you're condemned for the rest of your life to not being able to really have those core concepts under control and within your grasp. So I want to congratulate you and the rest of your staff on your particular focus and on math and seeing what that focus has wrought for us. So thank you, Ernesto. Very nice.
Thank you. You know what we'd like to tell our kids is when they say, I don't get it, I'm not good at math, we like to tell them, you're not good at math yet, right? We're still going to be working on it. We're going to be looking at closing those gaps. And so that's our job, right? So, but yeah, thank you for your comments.
Thank you for the presentation, Principal Araiza. I really enjoyed my time last week in Mr. Roberts' class and doing the math goal setting with the students. I'd not done that before, and it was just really impactful to me to see the kids, one, know exactly what they're doing, know what their scores are, be disappointed or really excited if their score was higher or lower than last time, and set really assertive goals for themselves for the next month. That was really neat to see that, and it was really just fun to engage with Mr. Roberts as well, and to see his passion and enthusiasm for teaching math, and to see how he engaged with the students was really neat to see the connections and the relationships he had with students. It was really, we're able to see the passion in his passion for teaching. And as I walked through the school building, just kind of going to the class and back out, and with you on the way back out, it was neat to see the energy in the school. It seemed, I think a teacher kind of called out to you as you were walking by, and you scheduled the meeting, as you were walking through, and the front office staff were really great as well. So the culture that you've built here, I think is really positive and clearly having an impact on a student achievement, as Director Rice mentioned. So thank you for all your work. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you for being here. Yeah.
Do I understand that we have time for a tour?
Yes.
We do?
Yeah, whenever you're ready.
So at this point, we'll take a 10-minute break and we'll do our guided tour.
Hey, right, our mascot, Wilson. He tends to follow you with his eyes. So and you don't know the number of tricks we played on people over the years, but people putting that outfit on and jumping out. Yeah. Up there. Some of our projects, student projects, art projects, very talented. We have very talented athletes. You can see we have most of the trophies here at Wilson, and as well as art projects and other stuff.
Our wrestling coach hasn't given us our wrestling trophy back.
Yeah, so come on down this way. Where Mrs. Bachman teaches, and so really what I wanted just to point out in this class is just kind of how language rich it is, right? And just so many visuals, and this is just how she teaches. So we've identified 5 different periods during the day when she provides a math intervention for the students. And if you ever want to see energy, I invite you to come into this class during the day, and the kids just love it, and they are on the minute they come in till the minute they go out. In fact, it starts outside the door because she greets them out there and asks them to, give her a math fact or something before they even come in the door. And so she does that, and you can see just displayed up. She keeps track of our math mindset class and our reflex, data, but you read that one at the far up right corner. Says students have solved over 3.5 million facts this year, and that was in December. Okay, so, yeah, and so they've been busy, and you can see the growth chart there from the beginning to the middle of our year. How much the green areas have grown, right? Just math math fluency and math facts. And so, yeah, our students they're doing awesome. So we're really proud of them. So here we have our greenhouse area. Okay, we started this many years ago. I think you were probably around when we started it. And so it was kind of a science project started where we wanted to engage students in growing their own plants and selling them as part of the ASB. And for a while there, several years, remember every single house was filled. We had to buy extra ones. And then we do a plant sale at the end of the school year. So you'll probably see an email that goes out from the superintendent's office inviting people to come and shop. So I'm not sure if it comes out of your office, but
it comes out of your office.
My office probably, yeah. So all of these are 8th grade classes. So again, we purposely keep them separated from our little 6th graders because they tend to be a little scary for them in the fall, and so they kind of catch up, right? But yeah, so it's so most of them are in portables. So we have 8 portables. Okay, so this is something that you probably don't see in many middle schools, but our kids love playing Foursquare.
Really?
So we painted these Foursquare, lines out here, and 8th graders are probably the biggest group of kids that they just love Foursquare. They do a little bit of basketball, football, but this is our main playground area. And yeah, I'm always amazed to see them playing Foursquare. It's just, I come out and play with them when I go out too. I make it all the way to the king spot too. So.
Okay, it looks like everybody is back. At this point in time, we're going to resume our reports to the board. And this afternoon, we have 2 reports from Bonnie Smith. The first is in her capacity as Executive Director of Career and Technical Education, and the second will be as the principal of YV Tech. So please help me welcome Bonnie Smith to the podium. Welcome.
All right, there we go. And which way to start? Are you pushing it up? Or? Thank you for having us today, School Board President Beckett, esteemed members of the Yakima School Board, and Superintendent Green, and all of our board meeting attendees out there. I came up, and I have to tell you right now, my heart rate's up in a good way. We just did a tour. We're starting to identify CTE classes that are going to come in that have already been in discussion. So here I've got my heart rate up, all excited as we get this conversation started today. This first presentation that we will be doing is a part of our College and Career Readiness Department. And again, in this capacity, I serve many hats for the district. So in this capacity, I'm serving as the Executive Director for College and Career Readiness and our CTE, Career Technical Education Department as part of that. And my colleagues, our leadership team for that is Gabe Stotts, Director of CTE, and then Nicole Bass, who is our Special Projects Manager. And she's in charge of our middle school rowing initiative for CTE going into the middle schools. We had to write this down because I'm getting all excited. One of the pieces I just want to bring up, I also serve my other hat as the Principal Director at YV Tech and the Skill Center. So you'll see some stats in both presentations, including YV Tech's numbers. But I also wanted to thank you for hosting. YV Tech is one of the regional skill centers across the state. And we have 974 students we serve, and 38% of those come from the Yakima School District, Ike, Davis, Stanton, and online students. Today, we presented at the start of the school year to the school board. But today, as we look at what college and career readiness actually exhibits, it's a 3-pronged system. And you notice here on the left, career technical education is part of that, and that's the one we will talk about today. Uh-oh. There we go. All right, now we're going to get into a little school. We're going to talk about CTE vocabulary. Okay. As we talk about CTE vocabulary, we want to show and demonstrate to the board some of the wording that you might see as part of legislative initiatives, as part of our discussion. And I know that part of the system, we throw around all these acronyms, but we want you to become a little bit more versed in what we do related to CTE. And so here's the words we're going to cover today and what it means in the Yakima School District. First, we're going to talk about CTE courses.
Good evening, everybody. So we have CTE courses offered throughout our middle schools as well as all 3 high schools, and we have expanded to offer 3 CTE courses at Yakima Online. In 2023, there are 68 courses offered at the high schools. This year, we offer 72 different high school CTE courses.
Well, being the shortest one, here we go. All right, now I am in charge of the middle school, and there are 8 courses currently offered in the 2023-2024 school year. Now, if you pay attention, you see that we've grown in 1 class, but that 1 class doesn't equate to just 1 teacher. We've actually expanded our CTE at the middle school level with 14 different teachers added to our department. Now that moves on to our next section, which is career clusters. Now, career clusters in CTE, we utilize a national career cluster to identify the state and local district program areas and the course pathways. So in the fall of 2024, a newly modernized career cluster framework was developed. And the reason to do this was to serve as a bridge between the education and the workforce, providing a central foundation for well-designed, high-quality CTE programs. Now, on this slide, you'll see a green check mark and a brown or copper check mark. The green indicates the career clusters that are present in our Yakima School District CTE courses, while the other represents those that are offered at our YB Tech campus. There we go. Our next section is program areas. So OSPI program areas or career clusters help inform OSPI on identifying the 6 state program areas that we in turn use to help develop our state-approved frameworks. Now, these frameworks are 10 to 20 pages of documents that outline the state course standards, topics, the units of study, plus the hands-on skills, the projects, the assessments that our teachers use. So these 10 to 20 page frameworks are used by those CTE teachers that we have to develop the curriculum and lesson plans that they use in their classes.
Alrighty, I'm here to talk a little bit about career pathways. So we use courses, clusters, and program areas to support students in developing their high school and beyond plans as required by the state. Now, the purpose of career pathways is to help students explore career and college opportunities. We use visual tools like the career tree you can see right there for biomedical science, along with digital programs such as Zello and SchoolLinks. These resources connect the students take within the Yakima School District to their future plans beyond high school, whether that's entering a career, an apprenticeship, the military, and or 2 or 4 year universities. Career exploration in the high school and beyond plan begin as early as 7th grade. Now, next are graduation pathways, which are very different from career pathways. In 2019, 8 graduation pathways were introduced as a part of House Bill 1599, and I'm here to talk about the CTE sequence of courses. Now, previously, students were required to pass all of their high school courses and the SBAC state exam in order to graduate. Now, students have the option to choose one of 8 graduation pathways in order to completing their coursework. Now, first, one of the OSPI approved graduation pathways includes a sequence of 2 credits of CTE courses or 360 hours that offers either dual credit and or an industry recognized certification. These CTE sequences have to be approved by OSPI. Now, on this slide, you can see same program course sequences. So agriculture to agriculture, business to marketing to business to marketing. Now, Yakima School District offers 95 same program sequence courses to meet graduation pathway options. Students need to take 2 credits with 1 CTE program in order to meet that requirement. Now, some examples. First, in the health sciences area, a student could take one credit of human body systems and another 1 credit of intro to health science careers, and that would fulfill the CTE graduation pathway. In the STEM career pathway, a student could take 1 credit of material science and 1 credit of computer-aided drafting, and that would also qualify them for a graduation pathway. And a final example I would provide would be out of the Family and Consumer Sciences program area, where 1 credit of child development and 1 credit of careers in education would fulfill a CTE graduation pathway. Oh, there we go. Now, students don't just have to take courses as a sequence within the same program area. We also offer multi-program course sequences where students can still meet that graduation pathway. Currently, the Yakima School District offers 79 multi-program sequences that are approved by the state of Washington. For example, a student could take 1 credit in a program area such as agriculture and 1 credit in another program area such as business and marketing to fulfill that program pathway requirement. Here are several examples. First, a student could take 1 credit of plant science and 1 credit of accounting, and to OSPI, that would qualify as a CTE graduation pathway. Another example, 1 credit of game design and 1 credit of robotics. And the final example would be 1 credit of careers in education and 1 credit of Microsoft Academy Office Suite, and that would also meet that graduation pathway. We are also identifying courses from more than 1 program area that have been approved by OSPI as the sequence. Those will need board approval soon. Now, shifting gears, we are extremely proud that the CTE department can be found in every goal of our strategic plan. Here are just a few ways. Number 1, our grads paraprofessional prep connects to early childhood education and a foundation in the early years. 2, high quality curriculum that is connected to real industry readiness and a student's personal high school and beyond plan. 3, the medical seal of bioliteracy and American Sign Language, the goal of being biliterate by graduation. Number 4, connected to providing purposeful pathways for students and supporting each student's high school and beyond plan. And 5 is career and technical student organizations, or CTSOs. And to tell you more about CTSOs, here's Nicole.
All right, in CTE and in education, we know we like our acronyms. So CTSOs, what does that mean? So a CTSO is a career and technical student organization. And a part of our frameworks is that we offer and support these organizations outside of our classrooms to offer leadership opportunities with our students. Some of the examples of the CTSOs that we have are DECA, who does have a name, but nobody uses it. So I won't bother telling you unless you know it and you get 10 extra points, okay? So if you can tell me what the DECA stands for, I will give you 10 extra points. Where those points go, that's a whole different story. But then we also have HOSA, which is our Future Health Professionals of Washington, FCCLA, which is our Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America, FFA, which is our Future Farmers of America, TSA, which is not the airport security, but rather it's the Technology Student Association. And then we have Skills USA, which is our trade, technical, and skilled services and occupations. Now, if you look on the screen, you'll notice that we have some state contestants and locations, and one of them has recently passed. So our DECA participants at Ike and Davis went recently to Bellevue for their DECA contest and did make finalists, but unfortunately did not place at state. But we are sending more this week. So we have FCCLA going this week for their competition, HOSA next week, TSA the following week, and FFA the following after that. So we like to keep our advisors busy and our students excited.
After that long list of vocabulary words, do you have any questions for us?
All right, who sits down with the student and helps them develop their high school and beyond plan? And then who assists them to kind of monitor and see that they're sticking with their plan or altering their plan or following through?
There's 3 parts to that, Norm. Right now, it falls a lot on the counselors, Chad is out here, Quisnell. He's our college and career readiness specialist that we have at each high school and at the skill center. But we're actually spreading that out so that the advisory class will be utilizing the School Links, the new high school and beyond platform from OSPI, to have as a part of advisory class. So those students get more one teacher to 26 students instead of one counselor to 426. And so we're trying to get it into advisory, and Jewel and Gabe had just put out a session for a work group to develop that so that we can make sure students are more pointed in what they want to go into and have the attention they need when they want to maneuver to a different pathway. Yep. Any other questions?
Bonnie, I have not so much a question, just a comment. I want to thank you and your crew for a great presentation. There is a lot of stuff in this presentation. Some of it I knew, some of it I didn't know. And for somebody who's been on the board as long as I have, that's a compliment to you that you can throw stuff up here that I didn't know. One of the things that I'm so proud of in this district is our CTE program and what goes on at the Skill Center. For a lot of our kids, if we didn't have access to the Skill Center, they would be lost as soon as they got out of high school, if they got out of high school. And we know that you have to snag them with something that they have an interest in. So you know as well as I do that for a lot of our kids, those CTE programs in the middle and high schools and the program at YV Tech is what we use as the bait, right?
Yes.
To get their interest and to get them to the point where they can be successful in something after high school. So I want to congratulate everybody at the Skill Center and all of the CTE teachers that are in the middle and high schools for what they do to really open up the world for our students. It's amazing that they have all of these options open to them now.
Well, thank you. We want to say thank you to the school board, right, to the teachers, to the staff for embracing us and the changes. I just started again back with the district last year and added on the team. We were able to add on the team last year, but to be open enough to see what we're seeing in the eyes of the kids, listening to the student voice and what they want so that we can make some changes like advisory class and putting that high school and beyond plan in there so students have more intimate time to make decisions, right? So thank you for allowing us that opportunity and being open with that so we can make a move forward on behalf of the district. Anything else before we go to the other 50 slide presentation? I'm just kidding. Well, I did have 50 slides and Barb told me no. I'm just telling you, which is good. All right, so next presentation we're going to see is on college in the high school and the AA in the high school. So we wanted to share today also on the dual credits and the course equivalencies that we have within the realm of the College and Career Readiness Department, again, for the Yakima School District at the high schools and also at YV Tech. So the first, from a dual credit perspective, we're going to talk about AP, Advanced Placement, and then IB, the International Baccalaureate at Davis. There's 9 courses at Eisenhower High School, AP courses, and then at Davis, there are 20 courses as part of that International Baccalaureate programs. And then we're excited to be able to work with Principal Hasty and her team over there to add on the career program, what's called the CP. You'll hear it as the CP, as a part of the International Baccalaureate for starting next school year. And then Gabe, a little bit about that. Gabe was Gabe, when I wrote the grant last year to move into and support career program as part of IB, Principal Hasty, and then Gabe was the assistant principal at Davis. So Gabe and I worked together because of his knowledge and expertise in CTE. And so Gabe, the CP, what is that going to entail for our kids then?
So our IBCP program is very similar to the DP program, but it is not going to be a student's full-time schedule. Currently with the diploma program, students are taking IB classes all day, have to score 3 or 4 or higher in order to earn that IB diploma. Now, as for the CP program, this would start their junior year, and students would take 2 IB courses, either one junior year, one senior year, both senior year, in a combination of a sequence of CTE courses and a personal and professional skills course as well. So for our students, it's really going to integrate high rigorous academics in the IBCP program and integrate it with what students want to do within their CTE classes. So they can really hone in on whether they want to do video game design, robotics, but they're pairing that learning with the courses that they are taking through IB. And again, my most favorite part of this program is the professional skills class, where students are going through a semester-long course to learn about communication skills, collaboration, problem solving, critical thinking, how do you properly use media throughout their day. And if they can do these things and earn a 3 or 4 on just 2 IB tests, they're going to earn that specialized diploma for an IBCP as opposed to the DP diploma that's currently offered.
Well, and uniquely from the perspective of the director at YV Tech, we applied for 2 classes, 2 programs to be part of that: nursing and medical assisting, right? And we had to come back and make sure the rigor from the science standards that were in there met the IB requirements. And so it's not just for any class. These are specialized classes that Principal Hasty and Davis, have honed in on and have worked with the CTE department to make sure that that rigor still part of that IB program exists and moves forward, but is open to many students now with this career program. All right, the next one for dual credit. Let's talk about a little bit about college and the high school. In 2023, the legislature passed Senate Bill 5048, which meant that the state was going to pay for the college and the high school tuition and fees instead of placing it back on the districts or the families. Great news, right? So you can see from our perspective, Davis has 7 courses right now for college and the high school approved, Eisenhower 18, and YV Tech 6 courses. But with that, when we're saying we have courses approved, that means the requirements set by the colleges, the universities, in our case, Central and Eastern, our faculty at the Yakima School District have met adjunct faculty level status to teach college and high school classes. They've got to meet a certain standard to be able to do that in the requirements for the state, which relates to the colleges and the universities' accreditation. So they can't just walk in and sign up. They've got to meet standard with that. Okay. And then as you can see, the number of students that are registered: Davis 485, 1,178 at Eisenhower, and YV Tech, we have 105. That will happen this year, a total of 1,768 students. The great news, that did a little quick math coming here, making sure I was current. 1 credit class at the university level is $243.03. So a 5 credit class is $1,215.15. So when you multiply that out, 1,000 students for a 5 credit class and the 768 students for 1 credit class, we are saving $1.5 million that the state is paying for in tuition and fees. Okay. The better news that's amazing for college and high school, because our faculty are adjunct and stay in our buildings and teach, the FTE stays in the Yakima School District, right? So that's great news from that perspective. And it's growing. We just got another 2 from Eisenhower approved for next year. And we're to the point now, as we're setting up our college and high school classes, we're saying we're missing these sections of classes in these specialty areas. Who can teach and what does our faculty have? Some of our faculty are finishing their master's degrees, and some are having to have 3 years experience or experience in teaching college prior before they can even apply. Some of our high-end chemistry or physics. And our faculty are meeting those requirements, both at Ike and Davis and at YV Tech. Great news. All right. Arizona State AA cohort. You might have heard this back in 2020. When did we start this? 2022. Our students are now juniors at Arizona State in an online cohort and will graduate next year in 2026. After that, we will be sunsetting this program. One, it's out of state, and two, it costs us money, right? So we committed, Dr. Green is committed to a cohort of students, as has Principal Hasty and Principal Diner. And so we have 16 Davis students and 39 Eisenhower students that are part of that cohort. We've paid $23,162 for each student to take 2 classes this fall. And so on the average for 4 quarters a year, we're paying about $92,648 to Arizona State for those classes. Reduced rate, because we're doing a cohort model, and there's 3 other school districts around the nation, but our cohort model where kids support kids and we have faculty identified that are supporting the kids and their counselors, our kids are going through in this cohort model that's successful. The other districts across the nation, the other 2, are not seeing success or traction. And so they're actually asking us questions knowing that we're going to sunset it next year, right? Like, we're a best practice model, but we're going to sunset it because we're going to stay in state with our college credits after that. Okay. All right. Whew. YVC are dual credit courses. These are courses that are taught by CTE teachers at our high schools, Ike, Davis, Stanton, and YV Tech. But uniquely, we still pay for these courses, and they're taught by our CTE teachers. So they will transfer into YVC and count for YVC courses. But if they go to take these credits anywhere else, they might only count as an elective. Each university or college in the state gets to choose these dual credits offered through CTE classes, how they will take them. And most of them, if they don't go to YVC, will get taken as an elective class, okay? Now, Miss Mayberry and Miss Gray, who both teach Teacher Academy, actually teach YVC. You're keeping me on my facts, right, to make sure. At YVC, if you teach an ampersand class, it's a credit class that counts for all community colleges across the state of Washington, like Ed 107 ampersand will be counted at YVC, will be counted at Whatcom College in Bellingham, will be counted at Spokane. In Spokane will be counted at Lower Columbia or Clark's College as that Ed class for that student, because it has this magical ampersand credit, but not all of them do. So those courses, again, CTE courses that are taken by the college. And we have 20 courses at Yakima, Ike, and Davis, Stanton, and then 5 at YV Tech. And again, we pay for these, and it's it's about $65 credit. So in Yakima School District, we just paid a $5,040 bill for dual credits for Yakima School District, and YV Tech paid $8,450. It's the higher the bill, the more kids that participate, right? So divide that number by 65. All right, Running Start. Great news, our kids have opportunities to leave our campuses and go to YVC for Running Start to be able to get that AA degree opportunity. But uniquely, the Yakima School District is still paying for these courses, and it comes out of our department. Right now, notice the numbers, great numbers. Last year, we were in the 80s for enrollment for Ike and Davis. Notice though, we have 112 at Davis, we have 107 at Ike, and we even have online students that are participating in Running Start. Amazing, amazing, amazing for 5 students. But I'll tell you, for those 224 students for fall quarter, we paid $586,000 for those courses. And that money, because those kids are leaving our campus, we're losing FTE. And again, YVC is doing their part as an amazing community partner, right? And that's what it's there for. We still just have to pay for those courses and those credits versus the college and the high school the other way, where we're able to keep the FTE and keep the money and the savings. All right. We'll have time for questions at the end. I see Martha writing them down.
All right, so I'm going to jump into our course equivalencies real quick. Currently in the Yakima School District, we offer 60 CTE courses that also cross credit towards math, science, English, and art graduation requirements. So the first one's going to be in the agriculture program area. Now, on the end of those 6 total classes we have in agriculture, you're going to see a double asterisk, which means that the state OSPI has done a review of those frameworks. So for example, with plant science at the bottom, 1.0 credit in biology and or lab science, that is approved by the state of Washington without our own review. Now in business and marketing, we also offer 6 different classes that cross credit for graduation requirements. Computer science can count as a 3rd-year math credit or even a 1 credit of science elective. Family and consumer sciences would offer 4 different ones. So ASL, careers and ed, family health and or food science. But with food science, again, the state of Washington does count that as a science credit and students do get that marked on their transcript. Now in health sciences, we also offer 6 from biomedical science principles that count as a 1 credit lab science, all the way through sports med 1 and 2, which also count as lab science, with other classes being offered for health and or 3rd-year math credit requirements. And here's Miss Bonnie to talk to you guys, well, not quite yet. Skills and tech sciences, this is actually our biggest program area. We offer 19 different courses in there. So we offer things like architectural drafting, very heavy in the math, so it counts as 1 credit for geometry. But due to the fine skills, that would also cross credit to a student's art graduation requirements as well. And finally, we have our STEM equivalencies. So applied algebra, or what we're going to be calling integrated algebra, could count as a 1 credit for algebra, all the way through our robotics classes that can count as either 3rd-year math credit or lab science credits as well. And here's Miss Bonnie to talk about the YB Tech equivalencies.
And just like Gabe said, right, like, so we too have the equivalencies from each of our areas. But because if you go to YB Tech, it's a year-long program, 540 hours, so you get 3 credits. And so we're able to give more than the elective credits. So we're able to give a couple graduation requirement credits and an elective piece to that. And so I've just listed the business marketing, the ed ones, and the family consumer science. And then here's our health science, kind of like what Gabe said. But again, we're able to give those 3 credits, many of them lab science, to making sure our students at our programs are dissecting, right? We have atomage tables now, just like Ike and Davis do, so that they can dissect on a computer screen and even assess on a computer screen before they get in. I walked in on sheep eyeball dissection last week, right, as part of one of the courses. So, and then law, public safety, and our STEM. Again, making sure that we're keeping our faculty in CTE relevant and also training them. We just sent 4 teachers this summer to the Applied Math Conference from OSPI to make sure they're getting the labs and the training they need. If they're CTE, the finance guy, right, in banking, but if they're going to teach that financial fitness 3rd credit of math, we want to make sure that they're also trained and ready for that. Our skilled and technical sciences, which are large amount too. Again, many of them are state of frameworks. And then we've come to our end. Any other questions for dual credit or equivalency classes?
Just a comment, it's amazing just the opportunities exist now for students to pursue a career path and also meet their graduation requirements with all these equivalencies. It's really amazing to just see it's complicated, but it's also just creates a lot of opportunities for students. I think it's wonderful.
Very good. Well, thank you. And again, thank you for allowing our staff, our CT staff, which is growing this past year, to take on this work as we continue to grow. So thank you for your time tonight.
I do have one quick question.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. And just regards to, is there opportunity to earn a certificate by students? Can they get like a certificate in auto body or as a medical assistant, or is that an opportunity that they have?
Yes, so we have a couple different ones. The students at the end will get a completer program certificate for 540 hours. The students that came in from other districts, maybe at halftime in January, will get a 270-hour completion certificate. but many of them are receiving, just like our Yakima School District, when they get that industry recognized credential like OSHA 10, for example, that is costing us over $150 per student to gain that, but they're getting that as part of their training in their programs, both in the Yakima School District classes and also at YV Tech. So they're coming out with a credential and a certificate. So even more than that, that flashy shiny card, that means something to those employers. And then the senior class, right? We're looking at offering that opportunity of career choices, but mainly to put together that portfolio. So when they're walking into the employer, they have all those certificates and they also have those credentials right there. So, because that's what the first thing the employer is going to want. Do I have a qualified employee entry level? And even the student now that is using CTE skills on the weekend to per diem money, I think of our nursing assistant students that are going to college, maybe to go to nursing, but they're working as an NAC on the weekend and they need that Department of Licensing card there, right? But they also need those credentials and that's what they're walking out of at the Yakima School District and at YV Tech. So it's amazing, amazing. Thank you.
Bonnie, with the implementation of college and the high school within our district, are we seeing a decrease in the amount of students that are choosing to go to YVC for Running Start?
This year,
Or is
so
it too early?
So it's too early. We had a 74% increase in the number of faculty that are qualified to teach college and high school last year because that was our focus. We needed to get faculty ready. So this year, instead of last year, 80 students going to Running Start, we have over 100, right? So if you looked at our data, but we just got the faculty ready and got them onto the master schedule. So we're now seeing the numbers increase that we can do so they can take them right on our own campus versus leaving to other places like Running Start.
I'm just
So
thinking,
you'll see an increase.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the amount of money that we send to YVC every year for Running Start when we have probably have equivalencies right in our own school buildings for college and the high school.
Yes, and now that we have faculty in place and can expand, we also have to meet the parents halfway and let them know about this in the language that they prefer of the opportunity for the student, right? We need to let the student and the family choose, not letting us say if they're ready or not, right? Like we're educating if they're ready or not to take that college and the high school course, but we need them to be able to understand the opportunities that exist for them in the Yakima School District.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Bonnie, Gabe, and Nicole for the information this afternoon, I guess, it's still afternoon. That takes us to section C in our agenda for updates. To begin with, are there any updates from members of the board this afternoon? All righty, then we'll move along to the update from Superintendent Green.
Thank you. First and foremost, I'd like to recognize that Stacy Locke, our deputy superintendent, is still out. So she has some issues that are being taken care of at a personal level. So I wanted to call that out, that she's simply not missing and she has maintained contact and wishes us all well. I'd like to also thank, I didn't have the opportunity, but I'm looking over at Bonnie and just incredible work. I found myself gripping the chair, not to jump up and celebrate and clap my hands, because the information that she's sharing is the numbers, the increases. I think she said 74% increase in college and the high school, one number, or just it's astounding the work that she's done. And I think it's important to daylight, I think at a public level. I think back a couple of months when I was talking about our student services and how great our emergency response team does and how I would just match them up against any district in the state. And then to hear our president, Franny Guerrero from YEA, echo that sentiment after she learned what they do was just astounding and just gratifying to have that recognized across, multiple levels. I feel the same way about our CTE department and the way that it continues to grow. If I had one person that I could pick in the entire state, and I've been in across the state, it would be Bonnie and then the team that she's assembled. So she's well respected, tremendously respected from across the state, Olympia, Spokane, everywhere, just seems to know everybody and is doing a tremendous job for these students, not only in Yakima, but the multiple other districts that are served at YV Tech. And I don't think we know how blessed we are sometimes in our district to have somebody of her caliber. The things that she's doing, sometimes when you look at, when we look at our college and the high school and our AA in the high school, that is something that we started 6 years ago. That was a vision, a dream, and then now having the absolute right person in the position that she's in to take that to the next level and continue to build that. I think we could probably spend a couple of hours going through the material that she has shared and come up with many questions. But I think it's, I don't think oftentimes, and I want to confess and be vulnerable here to our board of directors, I think maybe one of my strengths is not daylighting enough to you what the great things are that happen in the district. And I think when you hear negativity and not so much of the positivity, that negative sentiment can overtake or overshadow some of the positive things that are happening. But this is truly an amazing program, and the way that she has done and led and developed this, it's an envy really across the state. And so I want to daylight that and just share with you that as part of our Limitless grant, which she's involved in also, we have been able to develop a more robust partnership with Central Washington University, President Paul Wolport, who has now been there, I believe, 4 years, and then Teresa Rich, who's the interim president currently at YVC and putting in for the permanent position. The relationship that I have with them has been magnified through her ability, and I was able to present on a panel last week and go up to Central and be with President Wolport and President Rich and share what's working in our system and look at ways that we can become really seamless. The way that we are from elementary to middle school to high school, the goal is to have that extend and go from high school to either YVC or directly to Central. And I think we've got some great people in place to do that, speaking of all three of those organizations. So it truly is a regional partnership unlike what I've seen anywhere else in the state. And I think that's worth daylighting. What I'd like to share in addition to what I've already mentioned here this evening is that Janelle Keating was here on site last Wednesday, and she's the individual that's working with us on the professional learning communities. As I look up at Maria Lucero and Jamie Lee and Hector and others who participate to lead that work. Just a reminder, PLCs it's the only initiative that we can remember that's impacting the entire system. Last Wednesday, of course, is one of those half days where we have work happening to unpack the standards and to go through the assessments and to go through data and improve instruction. I'd like to call out in just a very, again, transparent manner that our numbers our absent numbers from adults during those Wednesdays continue to be low. And that would tell us that all of the commitment or buy-in is not there yet. But knowing that there is that time set apart for our early adopters and those that continue to advance, and that flywheel is moving, and we're confident that the commitment that the district has made to have that Wednesday early release and have that time to where we can work as professionals, our teachers are the experts. And as that expert, if you're working with experts, then you become smarter together and you become more effective together. So when we talk about professional development, I would like you to think about that professional learning community opportunity as the professional development standard that we have in the district. And that is the reason that we have that internal opportunity to be the best that we can be for our students, but do that in a partnership, one with another as teachers. The last item that I'd just like to share is that I know that President Guerrero was up here earlier talking about principals, and I just wanted to clarify because it might not be clear to the audience that when she was mentioning people's names, which we typically try to stay away from, I know she mentioned Casey Mitchell as an example, and she mentioned Maria Lucero. I believe that was out of respect and understanding for the work that those individuals are doing. What she was talking about were our principals, and I believe not wanting to use the name of any principal. So instead of saying principal A or principal B, it was, let's say, for example, Casey or Maria. So I just want to call that out and let you know that, we did cut early and we cut deep. We reduced in January of last year significantly of our leadership, and we are looking for ways to continue to maintain the numbers that we do have. As I look out across the state, and you know that I'm doing some work, very close work with Bellevue School District and Kelly Armaki. They're reducing all of their elementary assistant principals this year, except for, I believe, 2 or 3, and they have more elementaries than we have. And we continue to see that come across the state. I know that all of you are probably signed up for the WASDA, the e-clippings in WASDA, yes? So I encourage you to continue to look at those e-clippings, because the information coming across just gives you, paints a wonderful picture. I shouldn't say wonderful, but a very clear picture of what's happening in the state regarding funding. When you hear like Eastmont reducing 2.6 million, Kelso 2 million, Seattle 60 million, 30 positions in Tumwater, 100 paraeducator hours. It goes on and on. Blaine merging schools. You've got Mount Baker talking about the crisis, sending students to Olympia. This is something that is affecting our entire state. And to have the op-ed that came out last week, I don't know if you saw it, but there was an opinion article that came out. It was a guest commentary, and it was titled, "It's Time to Fully Fund Education." It was came out in the Yakima Herald, the online version, and it was co-written. Myself and Franny came together to make sure that we were sharing a perspective that we wanted the community to have. So coming together around the paramount duty of the legislature, which is to fully fund education. Just like to share one quote that we were able to share in the paper, which was, "It's inexcusable that in a state as rich as Washington that we underfund education, and that we determine success in many cases by zip code and not adequately funding all counties, districts, and school." And that's part of what the state needs to do. And we continue to work with our legislature to make that known to them, and we'll continue to do so. We're about halfway through the legislative session. So for any of you who have an opportunity on Thursday, I believe that's the next WASDA midday kind of update. So I know that Martha will be on that session, but if you wanted to hear that or learn more about that next week, I'm sure Martha will have that information. Director Rice will have that information for us. That concludes my report for today.
Thank you, Dr. Green. Are there any questions for Dr. Green before we move on? If not, Kirsten Bitterer, there is a large list of items on the calendar, and I have a feeling this list is going to continue growing for the rest of the year. Are there things you would like to highlight for us?
I am just going to highlight some from March that are coming up, so you don't have me at the podium with long lists. But I first do want to pay tribute to Barb Fiskus, who does compile these for all of us. I occasionally throw one or two her way, but she is very good about collecting these for you so that you have them at all times. And she even went to the trouble of making sure that anything that she knows of through the end of the year and beyond is listed there as well. So I do encourage the board and others to refer to board docs to see everything that is going on in our district. But first, we do have some upcoming school district board meetings. As many of you know, there are 5 Mondays in March 2025. So we are meeting today, and then we also have a virtual WASA school board session, your second session, which is on March 13th at 5. And then at Central Services at 7 p.m. on March 18th, there's a board business meeting. And then also in March on the 31st, which is a Monday at 4 p.m., you will be at Discovery Early Learning Center, which will include K-8 virtual for your school site visit. Moving on to school events, I wanted to make you aware that on March 4th, there is the Davis Midwinter Band Concert in the auditorium at Davis. And the next night on the 5th, there's the Eisenhower Band and Orchestra Concert in their Commons. On March 14th, there's the Davis Follies production in the auditorium. And then we get into spring play season. The spring musical at Eisenhower is The Music Man, and it will be between March 20 and March 29. And you can look up all of the details and times. And then I'm going to skip ahead to just let you know, since I'm talking school plays, that we also have school plays coming up at Davis in mid-April. Next, we have a couple of district events that I wanted to bring to your attention. And one is a bit near and dear to my heart, and that is on April 17th, which is the Japanese Cultural Fair and Show. That will be at Eisenhower at 4 p.m. this year. And we will not have that again until 2027. So if it's been something that you've wanted to see, please come on that day to see that. There are lots of cultural booths. You can dress in a summer yukata and get your picture taken for Instagram. You can also eat some yummy Japanese food that's prepared by our own food services, and sort beans with chopsticks, etc. And then there is an actual performance that's done in the auditorium. So next time I'm up here, I will tell you about everything else that's going on. And if you want to start to ease into spring sports, we do have a couple of games next week, so check the list for that. Any questions?
I just want to request that maybe that we could add the WASDA Spring Region 8 meeting, which is May 1st, and it's in Thorpe at 6 o'clock.
Thank you, Kirsten. Mr. Cooper, we'll turn it over to you for a update on our 2025-26 budget.
Good evening, everybody. I'd say best for last, but the budget is often not the best topic in the room. But I do appreciate following all the illustrious educators who gave awesome and impactful speeches about their programs. I would like to echo Dr. Green's congratulations to the CTE team. They're the bright spot, both financially and enrollment, would be CTE. They're up in enrollment, they're helping us financially, and they're running a really great program for kids. So. And I've been around the state too, and I can't say I haven't seen a team as good as them. So sorry, Bonnie and team, but you're going to get it twice. Now, you're probably wondering why I'm up here tonight, or you're probably wondering why I haven't been up here yet, potentially. So this presentation, of course, last board meeting, I spoke about kind of the shifting calendar. It was a year ago, approximately, March 21st, 22nd, when we did a very large reduction to the district's budget to stop some of the deficit spending was occurring. And you're probably wondering why that hasn't happened yet. So I'm going to tell you why. So we're in the middle of a long session. It's an odd year, and I say that on purpose. And odd years are 105-day sessions. So for an odd year for me means that we often go into the deep springtime when it comes to budgetary decisions. So first year of the biennium is a 105-day session. Last year we had a 60-day session, which means what? Well, it means a few things to us. It means last year, on the second year of the biennium, on the 60-day, really awkward, on the 60-day session, we had most of the budgetary information we needed earlier, not a final budget. It was also the second year of the biennium, which means there was hardly any policy adjustments. So continued, Inslee was governor, second term, Elaine Duck. We knew that the legislature was in the second year of the biennium, usually only small budgetary changes, not huge wholesale changes in policy, usually what happens. However, now we're in an odd year. We're in a long session. Director Rice and I talk about this a lot when it comes to the legislature because it seems like it never ends, especially when it's an odd year. So this pushes all of our budgetary decision back between 30 and 45 days. Yes, between 30 and 45 days. And you ask why? It's because the most accurate and correct information I have as a CFO, the better I can be towards the district and serving its community and board members and staff. Meaning I will have more accurate information and be able to do accurate budgeting. So currently, now the other interesting thing is when you talk about the budget deficit, and the superintendent and I talked about this today. Well, what is the budget deficit? And if I asked you right now, you would give about 4 different responses when the number, because the numbers you hear are often a 4-year number. So the state's required to give you a 4-year outlook. So when you hear 10 or 15 billion, that's the 4-year number. What I have been able to ascertain through all my digging is try to find the biennium number, which is the most important number. That's just under 7 billion as of today. Okay. So you hear 10, 15 billion, the state budget gets talked about in a multitude of ways. Sometimes it's the carry forward or the maintenance levels. What should happen at all is in policy. That could be a deficit. Then it's all what they want to add is policy enhancements so that deficit continues to grow. Currently, though, the best understanding I have of the budgetary situation in the biennium is about 6.7 billion is the biennial deficit. You saw this weekend or recently, Governor Ferguson put out a $4 billion reduction across all his state agencies. So that is approximately what? 2/3 of the problem, mathematically speaking, if that were all to go forward. So he may have taken care of $4 billion of the issue with his agency reductions. However, those are just a recommendation where they have to be enacted by the legislature. So any questions on what the short versus long session and what the deficit is currently? Just my goal tonight is to give you some understanding and also just show you what we are all grappling with at senior leadership levels. Let's talk about dates. You'll notice a very important date. So in a long session, the legislature, particularly in a deficit position, not as important if we're in surplus, but we're in deficit, which means the revenue forecasts are likely to be in decline, right? I would imagine the same thing is going to hold true for this next forecast. Washington has a mix of economic measures. We have one of the highest exodus of businesses in the United States of America. We have outflow of population. So demographically, we and business-wise, we're becoming somewhat challenged economically. We'll see how that goes forward into gross receipts. Gross receipts, I'm talking about state revenue. So they're going to wait for that forecast, and the forecast is going to say you're up or down, 400 or 500 million, whatever the amount. Then they're going to go back and they have that week and first part of next, usually, and they're going to, each chamber will drop a budget. Senate or House, House or Senate. Do you know which one goes first? Martha, I'm not sure which this year. Usually they take a turn. So one chamber will drop a budget. That'll be tea leaves for us, okay? The second chamber drops a budget, more tea leaves, and then they have to go into conference and reconcile. Some years the chambers are close, and the job in the springtime for the CFO is a little easier because you can assume and intuit what's going to happen. But if the chambers are far apart, and sometimes in situations like this in deficit, they can be widely apart on where they're going to reduce because the amounts are so significant. That's going to be an important milestone when we get the revenue forecast. Our goal right now, Superintendent talked to me about what would be potentially reasonable for when we would roll out our potential reductions and program changes. I'll say if they're needed, right? Because that's right now, it appears we will have some, but there's a lot of water to go into the bridge, and I'll talk about that shortly. The goal then would be in the middle of April. In April, you have a meeting. I guess you have a March 31st meeting, right? And then you have your April 15th, if I'm correct. So April 15th would be the meeting where we would likely go over budgetary scenarios and program reductions, et cetera. That would be the time frame. That would allow approximately 1 month before the statutory deadline for when you have to notify certificated staff of their employment status for the future school year. So and then sign a die, as I forgot. In between those, the legislative session and sign a die ends April 27th. You can see that's very late. Again, in my career, I think I've been through 4, 5, 6 special sessions, especially when there's large budget gaps. Deficit year, new governor. I would not be surprised if there was a special session, which usually that tacks that on to just before June 30. They always seem to settle right before the biennium officially would end. Now, that's conjecture at this point, but there are large disagreements on policy and huge disagreements on what should be reduced. So as I read it right now, patience will be a virtue. We must wait for the revenue to come in. The chambers will prepare their final budgets or their prospective proposed budgets, and then we will set out and do our final bit of work between now and then. Questions? Okay.
Jake, could you share with the rest of the board what happens if by May 15th we don't have a budget?
Yes.
Please.
So the question before the board was, if there is no state budget prior to May 15th, then what do you do? Well, what you do then is you read the tea leaves, Director Rice, you make assumptions from each chamber's budget, and then you would conservatively reduce program. Well, by conservatively I mean you would reduce program in a way that would protect the district from any potential fiduciary financial issues because you don't have a state budget. Now I have done that 3 or 4 times in my career. It does cause you to be more aggressive on how much you reduce because you just don't know what the legislature is going to do, particularly when I talk about some of these swings that we're seeing in policy. So generally what districts would do if the legislature does not settle before May 15th, and ideally you want to make those actions because in the end, a notice, a reduction in program. I talk about them, but it's a legal process, right? You have to have a rational basis, you have notification, due process rights are embedded. So ideally, you would like to make those decisions, 2 weeks before May 15th, because everything has to go a certain way. But you're right. And what happens is districts then reduce larger amounts to protect themselves, and then they wait for the legislature to settle. It is an unfortunate cadence, but one that happens across the state when the legislature goes long in the session. So my goal is to tell you where I believe we're at now. So last year ended 13.6 million in fund balance, 4.7% in total. January apportionment is in, budget versus actual. It's better than I thought better than I calculated originally because of CT in part. So we're only about a $1.5 million difference in the aggregate when all the puts and takes are accounted for. We've also had savings of about 1.2 million. That comes in the form of attrition, decrease in extra pay and overtime, et cetera. So we have achieved savings this fiscal year. And then we adopted a surplus, as you recall from our second meeting in August. So if all is flat, we would end about 13.7, just under 5% fund balance, right? Stable. Okay. Sorry, it's small, but there's a lot more in there. Now, this is always the most difficult part for a CFO because I want to show you what I'm looking at for variables, but I also want you to take into account that this is a point in time. Okay? I just talked about the legislature running long. My goal tonight is to show you what I'm seeing and believe the puts and takes are from the legislature. And I'll talk you through some things and then you'll probably understand why. So what I like to do is figure out what the known costs are. So I know currently that we have negotiated increase of about 150 grand above IPD for some of our smaller units. Those are known costs. Those deals are done. I know currently that the governor proposed an IPD, which is a COLA, and then based on the implicit price deflator of 2.4%. Now, why that's important is, and I've said this before, right now, the way the numbers align, every 1% costs the district about $1 million out of local levy funds. So the COLA is at 2.4, that's a $2.4 million draw on levy. If the COLA is zero, that's a $0 draw on levy, hence a swing of $2.4 million. So lower the COLA, lower the IPD, better for the organization. As I've said before, not the best financially for the individual, right? They're not getting a COLA or IPD. That is a huge swing, right? Multi-millions of dollars on the IPD amount. But currently, those are the known figures. So Governor Inslee released a budget with a 2.4% increase in the salary allocation model. Inflation for material supplies. I have a $2 million hedge there, which is fairly conservative given that our insurance went up almost $900,000 alone last cycle. So $2 million to set aside for MSOCs for inflation is at a minimum what we should be setting aside. Right? I don't perceive inflation has calmed in some areas, but not in insurance or legal fees or et cetera. Right? Those things continue to rise. Levy equalization, the current model. So levy equalization is another teaching component. So there's a lot of bills around levy and levy equalization. Those have huge impacts. So one of the LEA bills moves our LEA up by $4 million. Right? Well, that changes things dramatically. There are other options where they would do nothing, and then that's what I'm currently modeling. I'm modeling status quo. That shows a decrease in our levy equalization collection because our student enrollment's dropping and our assessed valuation's gone up. So those things decrease your levy equalization. So I'm modeling what is known in policy, not what is unknown currently. But there could be huge swings in levy equalization and local levy collection as well. Estimate, so we have enrollment that came from above. So I had an enrollment decline from prior year and then projected enrollment for next year. So you take those two together, you're at $3.7 million, sorry, $4.7 million. Those are known quantities. I'm projecting flat enrollment to continue this year, or sorry, slightly downward. And then next year, 240 FTE, mostly kindergarten and lower grade levels. That takes us down to I have $1 million in reserve for unknown costs and enrollment decline. So one thing that's outside my demographic models would be any impacts that federal immigration policy may or may not have on our enrollment. I don't know what that's going to be. It's not in anybody's model, right? Enrollment models are only as good as the past data that drives them forward. So that will be an anomaly that potentially could impact our enrollment. I don't know for the community or boards or staff's sake what that could be. It would be foolhardy of me not to assume there's going to be some downward impact on our enrollment, given current federal policy. So I don't know what that is, but I know CFOs up and down the valley are trying to figure out what that impact could be on enrollment and over the long term, and we just don't know. So it is prudent to set aside some money for $1 million, roughly 100 kids, 80 to 100 kids. So some hedge, but not overly aggressive. Then I'll get to the positives. So second year of our levy uptick goes 2.6 million. And then we have the estimated prior year savings of 1.2. And then the two amounts here that I want to talk about. With the enrollment in decline, the current staffing models will reduce about $3.2 to $3.3 million in staff just based on current ratios, lower enrollment. So that'll be part of what we need to do for financial solvency is to tighten up our ratios just based on new enrollment. That'll be about $3 to $3.5 million. I am proposing program reductions in this scenario of about $4 million. So those would be additional reductions beyond ratio-driven reductions for certificated staff. Those reductions could come from all over the organization and likely will, as we talked about some of those in the past. But we are working on a springboard as before. So just to put in perspective, $3.2 million in ratio-driven reductions of staff as lower enrollment drives lower staffing numbers. And then we still need to reduce, likely, given the current financial set, an additional $4 million that will have to come from other parts of the organization. So to put in perspective, that'd be about a 2.5% deficit versus last year's 6.5% deficit or 6% deficit. All that being said, what that plan accomplishes, it does add to fund balance. Remember, this is without the fund balance before you, is without the tax anticipation note. That was just for liquidity. So that takes us to a 5.44% total fund balance. I will say for liquidity needs, we're going to need, in the end, to be close to that $20 million mark based on our budget, just so we have sufficient cash flow. We're not going to be there yet, but given this amount, we will not have to borrow any further to make any liquidity needs. So there is a lot there. I didn't touch on another anomaly in the budget is the Office of the State Actuary and the Pension Board. The markets had a good return, and what happens sometimes when the legislature is short on money, they reduce employer retirement contributions. So it's a reverse COLA. So I have weird things going on. So in one scenario, I have a COLA that will drive 2.4 million local levy expense. If the retirement contributions drop, we save $1 million, right? Because it's a benefit in reverse. So our employer contribution would save us money, and then the COLA would cost us money. Those things are still very in flux and very large dollar amounts. So I know I went through a lot, but I would gladly entertain questions. So that is what I'm seeing right now, given the policy set before us. There's a lot of unknowns, but I did want to make sure that we had a chance to go through the potential reductions and the dollar amounts that we're seeing before us, because there's a lot of moving water, particularly policy and legislatively. But so that is where we are today. Again, the overall reduction in April will depend upon huge policy decisions that are still yet to be made legislatively. But questions?
Any questions from the board?
Comments? Okay. See none? Okay. Thank you.
If not, I guess I'll recommend the rest of the board does a mental health and wellness check on Jake about the 20th when the forecast comes out, and we'll hope.
Yeah, thank you
for the best.
Thank you, President Beckett. And I do apologize. It always feels longer this the first year of the biennium and everybody wants answers soon, but it's just 105 days of pure misery and joy. So thank you.
Sometimes that describes the session very well. Thank you, Jake. Appreciate your information this evening. That brings us to our first comment, or our first opportunity, I should say, for comment from the public. This would be a section for commenting on items that are on the agenda this evening. Do we have anyone signed up for comment tonight?
We do not.
Okay. Then for the second opportunity, which is, of course, is for all other items, not necessarily agenda items. Do we have anyone?
We do not.
No need for executive session.
Thank you. That takes us to the end of our meeting agenda.